Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellow Cat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Bosses of Reddit. What's the craziest thing a worker has done at work? Did you fire them? Part 2. Had this kid and worked at a water park. From the interview, it was clear that this kid was very stupid, but we don't care if they pass all their tests and show they know how to save lives. We quickly removed him from his chair after his first day because he stopped watching his water to help a guest move a big umbrella table. He was then put down to work as a ride attendant. First strike. Because I'm pretty patient, I had him in my section a lot. One day, he chose to teach the kids tricks and have them race down one of the body slides one at a time. After that, we talked for a long time about safety and rules. Second strike. After that, I kept him at the spray grounds all day where all you do is stand there and watch the little kids run around in the sprayers while giving them bandages, directions, and picking them up when they fall. We don't need anyone there to show how easy this job is. It's just annoying for the guards on duty to be asked questions while they're watching the kiddie pool. On my day off, he was put in charge of our big white water rapids ride in the middle of the woods while we were riding. He was supposed to watch everyone and make sure no one stood up or jumped off their boats. He grabbed a big stick and began hitting the side of the ride with it, almost hitting people. He was acting like he was crazy. He said afterward that he thought he was making it scarier. Strike 3. They fired him, but he came back to work the next day like nothing happened. I had to tell him very clearly that he was fired. Stay away. You no longer work here. You will not get any money. Okay, that's it. Leave and go home. Was in charge of sales and business development for big commercial maintenance contracts. Already, the required of $1 million in new contracts for the first year was annoying. For example, contracts that started in October had only 3 months of work under them and the rest didn't carry over to the next year. Then I got mad because the branch manager turned down my $850,000 bid by adding an extra $400,000. She said she didn't want the hassle of a contract that big and so far away. New satellite office would have been needed, and that was taken into account in the bid. I lost about $20,000 in commission on that one. The theft, though, was what made me give up. I spent months building a relationship with the local management firm that led to a great opportunity. At their request, I spent weeks putting together a proposal for all of their local properties. A lot of studying, measuring, analyzing, and guessing. I finally came up with a good number, which I then shared with the client after getting approval from my manager. The client was thrilled about it. Set up a lunch meeting with him to sign the contract and get things going. So we set up a lunch meeting for the following week with my boss present. In the morning of the meeting, the senior BD from our main office and one of the owners came to visit. We then met in our conference room to plan the lunch meeting. At the end of our meeting to get ready, they told me I wouldn't be getting there. Mr. Senior BD had a small contract for a single property with the same company, different branch, in a place more than 2 hours away. He was supposed to go to the meeting, close the deal, and be the client's representative. Since it was his client, this also meant that he would get all the commission. For $35,000, he did nothing but sit on a 30-minute meeting to get ready. I took out my keys, dropped them on the table with my phone, and then just walked out after some pointless arguing. Not the boss, just a situation I witnessed. I worked for a small chain of pharmacies with 4 to 5 stores. In the main store, every Tuesday and Friday when big orders came in, the IT guy would help the stock guy out. They also had a delivery driver who had been there for a long time and had a problem with gambling. He would borrow money from anyone and then pay them back when he got paid. He got angry easily and was often mean to customers and coworkers. This silverback opens the door at the top of the conveyor belt one day, which is where deliveries go to the basement. In a loud voice, he tells the IT guy to sign for the package. Now, this worker, or any other worker, could have signed for the package. For some reason, he didn't like the IT guy. I think the guy had snubbed him a few times, which made him mad. The IT guy wasn't able to sign a tablet today because he was too busy fixing a problem with their website. There were only 2 of them at that point, so I never got the whole story. Looks like the IT guy either didn't pay attention to the delivery guy or told him to sign it himself, or maybe he just said F off, I don't know. I do know that the silverback got drunk and angry. He stomped down the stairs, ran into the stockroom, and punched the IT guy in the side of the head. I think the IT guy had headphones on, but I'm not sure. In any case, this sets up a Donnybrook. A punch is thrown. The black guy worked out hard and got really buff. The IT guy was also not a small guy. At one point, the delivery guy pinned the IT guy against a wall and hit him over and over again. All of this took place in 30 seconds. The fight could be heard by the manager, who was only 100 feet away. Looks like he came into a huge mess. The IT guy got a broken lip, a cracked nose with 2 black eyes, and worst of all, a torn rotator cuff. The other guy cut his head badly and lost a tooth. The business owner called his lawyer, who told him to fire both of them. He liked his family and ran his business with favoritism, so he chose not to do either. He gave the IT guy 2 weeks off, wrote the other guy a letter, and tried to end it there. That was the end of it, for about a year. That evening, the IT guy got a job at a company and gave his 2 weeks. Over the next 2 years, the delivery guy got worse and worse. He started yelling at people when he dropped off their medicines and was following a woman around. Show this guy some freak show. During that time, I moved, but a close coworker told me that he was finally fired. After about a year, he was seen living under a bridge with a sign that said spare change. That's too bad. He should have been fired a long time ago. The IT guy might have been able to make a lot of money by suing the guy in the store. They got lucky that it didn't cost them more. The pharmacy is now owned by the owner's daughter, who quickly destroyed it. The owner had to sell his $2.1 million home to pay off his debts. He and his wife now live with one of the kids, poor guy. Reddit, who has an a-hole neighbor / HOA, what's your story? Part 2. 10 years prior to our development going in, our soon-to-be neighbors bought their new home on freshly cleared land. When they bought their home, it was in the first section of a large development that abutted the second section that forest at that time. My house would eventually be in the second development with my side yard abutting their backyard. The neighbors made their yard really nice, fenced-in in-ground pool, well-manicured lawn with sprinklers, flowers, etc. When the development company decided to continue on to the second section, the neighbor was applying abnormally strong pressure on the developer about their private backyard. Eventually, the developer settled with them and agreed to a 15-foot no-cut easement in the new lot just behind their backyard, preventing the mature trees behind their home from being cut down. Our first summer in the house, we naturally started to do landscaping. We felt our lot was rather narrow, so we measured. With the foundation as a marker, we found our side yard ended well into the neighbor's backyard. This was unexpected, so I called the original surveyor to restake the boundaries. He planted official stakes into the neighbor's backyard past what we thought was the property line. We thought the property line ended at the neighbor's side of the 15-foot deep row of mature oak trees. Turns out it was 20 feet farther into the neighbor's yard. That 15 feet no-cut easement was added to the subdivision plans based on the property line, not where the tree line was. Reframing this, the neighbor extended his own backyard 20 feet into future neighbor's land, then had an easement added to that future neighbor's land, preventing the future neighbor from cutting down the trees from 20 feet to 35 feet into their side yard. They gambled that we wouldn't notice and let them keep using 35 feet of our property. We fenced down the property line and had the easement removed, so we might be a-holes in their eyes. Not my actual next-door neighbor, but someone who lives in the neighborhood. We'll call him Frank for short. Frank is a gentleman of advanced age. According to appearances, he lives by himself. He has a tendency to be very irritable. I have a friendship with Frank's neighbors who actually live next door. He works as a prosecutor. Frank is aware of this, which is why he's always calling the police on him for reasons that he has to make up. During the evening, a friend and his wife make the decision to spend time in their recently renovated backyard. Several pieces of incense are lit. Frank immediately begins to yell at them for engaging in drug use after opening his window, which is located next to the shared fence. After that, Frank places a call to the police. On weeknights around 12 o'clock in the morning, Frank will call the police for no apparent reason due to the fact that he's aware that both my friend and his wife have jobs that require them to be awake early. An incident occurred in which he disclosed to the authorities that they were installing speakers that were oriented toward the shared walls and playing subliminal messages through the walls at random. It appears that Frank is not of sound mind. We have an HOA. The HOA always listens to Frank and not the other neighbors. Every day, the rest of the neighbors will see Frank walking around the neighborhood pretending to talk on the phone. However, he will stop and write down in a notebook anything that you're doing that he considers to be inappropriate. Should you put the trash cans out 10 minutes earlier than you're permitted to do so? On the notebook, that's written. Is it true that your guest stayed for more than 24 hours and occupied a parking spot? Written down. Is it true that your dog did not have a leash on him when he exited your vehicle and went straight to the house? Written down. Got to the point where my friend installed a camera on the inside of his house that was facing outward at the entrance of his front door. It was brought to the attention of the HOA. How was Frank able to know? As a means of gaining access to the interior of your home, he enjoys placing his face on your window from the outside. It's true. In addition to that, he makes sure to observe what you're doing inside your home. Another neighbor made the decision to install a doggy door on the door that leads from the garage to the living room in her home. No one is able to see it. In spite of the fact that the garage door is open, you will not be able to see it. However, she received a complaint regarding it. The good news is that Frank will be moving this month. So long, Frank. Although I was still a kid and it was my parents that dealt with all of this, I still considered her my neighbor. When I was 13, my parents bought a new house on the edge of town. Wasn't really in the country, but it did come with 1.5 acres of land, so our neighbors weren't right next to us like they were in town. We have neighbors to the east and west. The road is to the north and there's a cornfield right across from it. It's just an open field to the south for about half a mile before it meets a tree line. My grandfather is the neighbor to the east and we all get along great, so there's no problems. We'll call the neighbor to the west the Wicked Bee of the West, or WBOTW for short. Now, WBOTW didn't seem like a jerk at first, but it only took about a month for her real character to shine through. Several things were on the list of things they wanted to do right away after they bought the house. The fence in the backyard is one of them. It was old and rusted, and most of the posts were leaning so badly that you could almost kick them over. On top of that, there was a single line of barbed wire across the top. Because we were kids, my parents were sure they knew who owned the fence, us or the neighbor who owned the land behind it. We owned it, though. Because it had been there for so long, not even the person who owned it before was sure who did. They hired a surveyor to come out and mark the property line so they could see how much land they really owned. To cut a long story short, we owned the fence and about 15 feet of land right behind it after the surveyor marked everything up. When we proved that we owned it, my dad decided he would just rip it all out so he wouldn't have to look at it and we wouldn't be hurt by it. Next weekend, he starts to take it all apart when, surprise, the sheriff pulls into the drive. Turned out that WBOTW had called the police because her neighbor was tearing down her fence and she didn't like it and wanted it to stop now. So Dad goes inside to get the survey paperwork and shows it to the sheriff. The sheriff basically tells her to shut up and it's perfectly legal for my dad to take down a fence on his property if he wants to. That doesn't make WBOTW happy. My dad tears it all up and rolls it into a big pile. Then she has her husband bring the fence over to their yard on their tractor. Doesn't matter what, that's fine if she wants to look at a pile of rusty fence posts. After that, she hired her own surveyor to check out her land. I think she did it to show that our survey was wrong and put up the fence again. He does her survey and it turns out that everything was marked exactly where it should have been on the last one. She has to deal with the old fence, a stick up her behind, and being known as a bee. Since then, there have been many more things that have shown how good she is, but those are stories for another time. If you want to watch the part 1, click the link here. We're very, very glad to see you all in the comments again. Many, many thanks for your support.